Hello, this is Joshua for Frost Dragon Designs, and today I'd like to talk to you about my Cancer Zodiac Cat Hard Enamel pin. This pin is part of Series 4 of my larger Black Cat RPG collection. In Series 4, I based the first 12 pins off of the 12 astrological signs of the Western Zodiac. This pin was inspired by Cancer, the crab. So let's get into the design. The Cancer design is interesting because it was one of the first designs that I did some sketches for, but it's also one of the last pins that I finalized. This started as the concept of basically like a monk-like cat who rode around sitting meditating on the back of this giant crab. And this is actually one of the very first sketches for Series 4 that I shared with my Facebook group. But as I started working on the designs for Series 4, I somehow got it in my head that maybe I could do Cancer as an Artificer or Inventor. So this second sketch here shows a mechanical crab, and the kitty is standing behind them with maybe some sort of a hammer type weapon, something that could be both a tool and a weapon. I think, honestly, I just got really excited about the idea of this big robot crab, and I was just like, nope, that's the idea I want to go with because I want to illustrate a robot crab. And I think that that kind of shows through in this video. If you're just watching the amount of time I spend working on the robot crab versus the kitty, I think it's disproportionately weighed to me spending time working on the crab. Now, in defense of that, the pin is the Cancer pin. It's not the kitty pin. I mean, it's the one for Cancer. It's the one for the crab. So I feel justified in the amount of time I spent working on this robot crab. And to be very honest, I had a great time doing it. Now, like so many other animals and creatures, when I design them, if I've never done them before or only done illustrations once or twice of them, I spend a fair amount of time looking at photos of crab on Google. And so common characteristics, I had to think about like, what type of crab was I trying to emulate? Because like a Dungeness crab looks very different from a snow crab, and that sort of thing. But, I'm originally from Maryland, and Maryland, they eat a lot of blue crabs. And so I decided that I would model my crab after a blue crab. Now, blue crabs are not actually blue, although my robot crab is, but they are more of a greenish, bluish color. I think they're called blue because the tips of their pincers are typically blue. And then, like so many crustaceans, when they're cooked, something in their keratin, something in their carapace turns a red color. It's probably a protein or something. But so I spent a lot of time looking at their general form, the general shape of the main body, the shape of the legs. That they have 6 legs and the 2 pincers. They also have 2 kind of fins on the back that they use for swimming. And I tried to use all of this information to inform the design of the robot crab. I didn't need it to be, super perfectly accurate, because if you think about it, if the kitty is like an artificer or inventor, he is taking inspiration from nature to create this robot crab. He's not necessarily trying to make, a perfect replica of a real life crab. He's using it as an inspiration for his design of his robot. So I felt comfortable either leaving some details out or adding in a couple things that weren't necessarily how a real crab works, just because, if you think about it, that's what this kitty would be doing when inventing his robot crab companion anyway. I always like to think of these as characters, as they have stories, they have things that have led them up to this point that are the reason that they look the way that they look, and they have things that they're going to be doing. So I try to keep that in mind. It's not just about, okay, what do I want this pin to look like? But for me, I treat them as characters in a story, in a world, and I'm trying to imagine, what are their motivations? Why are they the way that they are? And I try to use those little stories, even if I don't communicate them to you all, I try to use those to inform the design itself. Once I got the crab to a reasonable point, I then had to turn my attention to the kitty. And by the time I was doing this, I had somewhat lost faith in the idea of having a big hammer as his weapon. And so I kind of, at the moment, gave him like a long staff and a shield, because I was thinking, like, if he's riding on this crab, maybe, I don't know. I wasn't really sure what I was doing with it, to be very honest. I had lost the idea that was originally in my head. And then I was just trying a number of things out. I was thinking maybe he could be like fighting alongside the crab and he could have like a mace, maybe like a mace and shield. And then I thought, well, maybe he's got like a big wrench. Like that seems kind of cool. Seems very inventory, very artificery. I had him standing on top of it. I wasn't really convinced that that was what I wanted. And then I started thinking, like, this is a big piece of machinery. It's a big piece of metal. The crab is very wide. And I started thinking that would be really great in like a combat situation for acting as like a blocker, like keeping things from getting to the back lines. He's a great front line kind of fighter is the idea of the crab. And I started thinking, well, if you have this big, wide companion up front holding the line, wouldn't you probably want to be further back doing something from range? And typically in a fantasy setting, our range option are crossbows or bows and arrows. And I have done an artificer with a crossbow before, and I really liked the way that looked. And I mean, obviously there's spells as well, but I wanted it to be some sort of a mechanical device that he was using. And I just decided, I think, I love archers. I have a lot of them in the Black Cat RPG collection, but I thought for once I would go with, a firearm. Now, I've done firearms before. I have a gunslinger kitty. He's got 2 pistols, and I really like the look of that. But I thought this would be a really good opportunity to use a rifle-like weapon. I don't think I'm going to have many opportunities to do that, and so I decided that I would do that with this particular design. Once I had decided that I was going to go with a rifle, a lot of the work that was left for this design became a matter of figuring out the composition. I knew what elements I had. I had a big robot crab, and I had a guy with a rifle and a hood and a cloak. But there were a lot of details of figuring out, like, how is it going to fit well together? Are the claws going to be up? Are they going to be down? Are they going to be kind of together? Is he aiming the rifle and shooting it? Is he holding it down and off to the side and just kind of scouting and observing the situation? There were a lot of possibilities of what I could do, and it was really just an issue of what is going to end up with the strongest end composition for this design. And while I liked the idea from the sketches of the kitty be standing on top of the crab and using it kind of like a platform, it started making a lot more sense to have him physically behind the crab in the pin design. Not only did that make sense just from what would be happening if they were in a situation, but it also made sense just from a detail standpoint. There's tons of details on the crab itself, and I didn't want to make this pin so overloaded with details that it was challenging to produce. So by putting the kitty down behind the crab, that kind of blocked some of him, obscured parts of him that I wouldn't need to necessarily design out. And then, like so many of the designs, the last bit was just me fiddling around with a couple details here and there, doing some cleanup work, making sure that I didn't have anything that was going to cause more problems in production than it was worth to the design itself. Overall, I really enjoyed this particular pin design. I really like the crab. I think he's very cool, very unique, and I hope you enjoyed this one too. Please go ahead and like and subscribe. I will be having a new video every week. Some of them are going to be for Series 4, some of them are going to be as I'm releasing new pins, and I hope to see you back for the next one. Thanks, and have a great day.